Congressman Kennedy, for joining us today. We're so grateful to have you as part of our DotTalks series. It's part of programming at the Boys and Girls Clubs of Dorchester. We appreciate and respect all of the hard work that you've been doing, keeping everyone living in the Commonwealth safe. Bob and Mary Scannell would send their warm regards.
Thank you.
Appreciate the willingness to spend time with our members this afternoon. My name is Queenette Santos, and I'm the unit director at the Walter Denny Youth Center site at Harbor Point. But you can call me Queenie. I have worked at the club for the past 25 years, and just want to tell you that, I love this job and the agency that I work for and all the work that we do. During this pandemic, the club has not missed a beat. Our staff has worked very hard to keep the kids and the community safe and engaged during this time. We try to meet the needs of all of our families in the community. Today, Congressman Kennedy, we have some amazing young people with us. But before we get started, we just have a question for you. How can we help you better serve the community during this pandemic?
Queenie, thank you. I know when we had talked about getting together to for this event, when we were talking about the pandemic, we were all talking about COVID. It's awfully hard at the moment to divorce, obviously, a pandemic that's claimed over 100,000 lives with these ancient wounds in this country that are just pouring out across our communities and across our city and so many other cities in our country. And obviously the fact that they're related, the fact that a COVID epidemic claimed more Black and brown lives is not a surprise. And it goes to the structural inequities and failings of our society that go back to our original sin. And so I think there's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot that needs to be done. But there's a lot, I think our community has to be willing to listen, has to be willing to learn and unlearn some things I think that we have learned that weren't wholly accurate or didn't accommodate for a full accounting. So I guess at this point I would ask Boys and Girls Clubs community to raise your voices, particularly for your members, to know that this world is yours and this challenge is yours and this fight is yours. To not cede that ground to anybody, and to be willing to use your voices as loudly and proudly as anybody else will, because it is in fact young people that are going to drive this change.
Thank you, Congressman. I think you answered part of another question that we had also. So many of our families are concerned with the pandemic, and now with the violence and tension in the city and across the country. Can you just give us a little overview of what you and your colleagues in Congress are doing to address this concern?
Yeah, so there's, with regards to COVID, Congress has moved, in the scale of Congress and the speed of Congress has actually moved fairly quickly. We've done a fair amount. There's a lot more that needs to be done. So Congress has actually passed, the House and the Senate signed and initiatives that have been signed into law, accommodate for several $1 trillion, so a mammoth amount of money, to try to support our first responders, our essential workers, provide assistance to families, provide assistance to small businesses, assistance to our healthcare sector, try to acquire more of that personal protective equipment, PPE, an awful lot of all of that. And that's important. But I think, and has been critical, without question. But I think there's obviously an awful lot more that needs to be done. We still, even almost 5 months into this crisis, still don't have enough testing that needs to take place around our country. We are still asking so much of essential workers. We need to be able to provide assistance to them. We need to provide more flexibility to families so that they can have confidence that they're going to make their rents and their mortgages and their car payments, so they don't have to choose between their health and their job and their financial security. We have to make sure we protect our democracy and pass accommodations for early vote and vote by mail. You got to strengthen our healthcare system to make sure that every person gets the access to the healthcare that they need when they need it, and the treatment that they need when they need it. So there's a lot more work that needs to be done, without question. The House of Representatives passed another $3 trillion bill that is now waiting for approval and passage by the Senate and Senator Mitch McConnell. So that would be the next place to start.
Thank you so much, Congressman. And thank you. We have, with our members this evening, they have some questions for you. And we're going to start with Logan, who's a senior at Quincy High School. And by the way, Congressman, all of our members that are here with us this evening are seniors in high school.
That's fantastic.
And moving on to greatness in the fall. So we appreciate them being here also.
Logan.
Hello, Congressman Kennedy. So my question for you is, what are you doing during quarantine to keep yourself safe, sane, and productive?
Logan, great question. Safe is essentially abiding by more or less the rules of quarantine, and only breaking those when essentially absolutely necessary in order for I've had to go down to Washington a couple of times to go vote. And so where that responsibility requires me to go, I've gone. But other than that, I don't leave my house very much these days. It's been to for some kind of essential visits here. And we're doing a little bit more now that some of these stay-at-home rules have relaxed. But for a while there, we didn't do much other than go to the grocery store. And perhaps I got 2 little kids, so take them for a little walk outside and make sure they didn't burn down the house. Try to get some exercise where you can, but with 2 little kids, that gets harder. And try not to get divorced, which is also good advice for all of us. You got 2 little ones that at this point have been trying to put as many holes in the wall as they possibly can. So it's not always easy. So it goes, probably like almost every other family out there with little kids. It's a challenge. How are you? What are you doing?
I'm good. I just finished school, as most seniors have.
Yeah. What are you doing for the summer?
I'm supposed to be working down in like a place in Woods Hole, down like kind of like the arm in Massachusetts.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm not sure yet if like officially if it's all set in stone, but hopefully I am, because I kind of need it for college.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Logan's celebrating his birthday today, Congressman.
Hey, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jared. Oops.
18?
Yeah.
Happy birthday, man.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jared, who is a senior at the Henderson Upper Academy.
Hello, Congressman Kennedy.
Hey.
As a young adult, I've started noticing a lot of things about my community and like communities outside of ours, right? And I've always been thinking like I have to focus on my studies. I have to get, to college, go past it. I have to, because we're growing up and we have to get into like the real world. My question for you is like, what advice would you give us teens who are interested in improving our communities?
Oh man. So the biggest advice, and I think or the best advice I could give you, is not to let anybody tell you that you can't make a contribution to your, right? You will hear, you probably already have heard, thanks so much for your help. Let me tell you how this really works. That's really great. Why don't you go try something else? Or, hey, it's always been this way. It's been this way for a long time. That's a really tough challenge to solve. And just know that all of those are excuses. And yeah, they're going to be there are the way things work. That doesn't mean that that's the best way things should work, or it's not worth trying to test that to see if it should change. And know that you are just as much a part of a community as anybody else. And that your voice counts as much as everybody else. And that you have just as much right to say that this is the right way or the wrong thing as anybody else. And that in fact, as a young member of your community, that community belongs to you probably longer than anybody else because you're young. And so don't back away and don't shy away from saying, hey, I want a seat at the table. I've got ideas. And if there's something wrong with them, then teach me. Then explain to me why, if I want to do this, why that's not the right way of doing it. Or why you think there's a more effective way of doing it. But if somebody tries to shoot you down, the most powerful question is why? And if you keep asking it, you'll either learn something or you'll learn that whoever's giving you the answer doesn't know what they're talking about. Either way, it's a powerful lesson.
Thank you. I appreciate this. Yeah. Good. It's good advice.
Will, a senior at Archbishop Williams High School.
Hi, Congressman Kennedy. How are you?
Hey, doing good, man. How are you?
Good. My question for you is, I was wondering, what has been the most challenging decision you've had to make during this quarantine?
The most challenging decision, I got to say, well, I think probably one of the issues is that there haven't been all that many decisions to make, honestly. Because you just can't. There's
not much to do.
You can't. I mean, the odd part about it is that the days are still, they're extremely hectic, they're chaotic, they're hard. And in many ways, they've gotten more chaotic and harder because I don't have a fully functioning staff. The way that, as a member of Congress, you got folks that work with you and work for you.
Mm-hmm.
But you normally work in an office and there's ways things works together, and we have a team meeting and you get everybody on the same page and they go off and they do their things and they come back together, and that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
It's phone calls and text messages and emails and Slack and all the rest. And it just, the administrative time and cost to try to keep all of the trains running goes up exponentially and the productivity goes down. And so that part's been hard and frustrating. But for a lot of the stuff that's going on, it's not like there's been a whole lot of choice, right? It's been, there's doctors and nurses that need gowns and masks. They need help. Okay, so you got to put that down and help. And I think probably the hardest choice there, one of the hardest realities of this is just when there has been so much dire need to try to have to say, what are you going to focus on? Because this hospital needs help, and this hospital needs help, and these people need food, and these people need tests, and and just an unending list of emergencies that need attention now. And that part's, it makes you feel fairly helpless in trying to find ways to respond to it. And so being able to just boil that down and get through it as deliberately and effectively as you can, I think is the only way through it, but it can be a challenge, without question.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Trevor, a senior at Snowden High School.
Hello, Senator.
Hey, what's up?
So my question is, what gave you the push to be a congressman and now the Senate?
With regards to Congressman, there are a lot of ways people can help in a community and give back and try to change things. Government is essentially, at its most basic, the way in which we try to solve problems that address all of us. Right? It's the way in which we say, hey, education, we all need education. How do we address education? Defense, environment, housing, right? All the things that affect us all, someone's got to try to solve them. That's government. And so when you have structural challenges and structural barriers that prevent people from being able to make the most out of their own talent and potential and hard work and determination, the thing that is going to best alleviate that is government. Because it's government, it's structures that have put those blockages in place, and it's government that has to take them down. And I want to try to help do that. And if you want to help do that, I think government's the best place for you to try to do so. Business can be helpful without question. Certain businesses, certain industries, certain areas, nonprofit work, certainly. Boys and Girls Club does a tremendous job at this. But I think even your counselors at Boys and Girls Club would say, as amazing as this experience is, there's certain things there that Boys and Girls Club can't do. And there's certain things there that government can. And that's why I ran for office. And that's why I'm running for office again, because I think that this moment is of such enormous consequence for our country. And I thought that before COVID-19, and I thought that before these demonstrations that we're seeing across our country, but both of those have only heightened the urgency of now, to borrow this quote. And I think that if you believe that this is a unique moment and that there is such emotion and anguish and pain and opportunity that comes with it, then you better have leaders that are doing everything that they possibly can to navigate and guide and fight our way through it. And I think we can get more out of the current position. And I don't say that with any ill will to the current senator. He's a very decent man. I just don't think he's doing all that we should expect a Massachusetts senator to do. Because I think what comes with that platform is an enormous opportunity and power and voice to push the dialogue and debate. And I don't think that's his focus. I don't think that's how he views the job. And I think this moment is far too important to just let that go. So I'll let you know how successful I am. How old are you?
17, turning 18 in like, actually fairly close.
How close is fairly close?
5 days.
All right. Happy birthday, 1. 2, I got to get you to register to vote. All right. You got to vote on.
I'm already pre-registered.
There you go. You're a good man, Trevor. September 1st.
Next, we have Megan, who is a senior at Archbishop Williams High School.
Hi, Congressman Kennedy. How are you?
Hey, Megan. How are you?
I'm good. My question for you is, what is your favorite part of politics?
The people, without question. Look, if you believe that this job is about trying to address people's concerns, you get this job, you get to meet some of the most amazing people, right? You can meet leaders of business and innovation. You can meet kings and queens. You can meet heads of state, and you can go into a homeless shelter and talk to the people in a homeless shelter. You can go in and literally talk to or listen to almost anybody. You get to learn so much about so many different things, from healthcare to education to climate change to oceanography, to you name it, there's something to learn about it. But it's people that drive this work, and it's people that are affected by it. And so the best part of the job is the people you get to meet. And the worst part of the job is almost everything else. but the people are it's the people that keep you going through it, at least for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brendan, a senior at Boston Latin.
Hello, Congressman.
Hey.
Aside from current events, what do you think is the most pressing issue our country will face in the upcoming years?
So, Brendan, that's a great question. And look, I think a lot of this is linked, but I do think that the biggest challenge we face is essentially an unequal playing field that is caused by these structural inequities and structural racism in our society. And I think that permeates through, obviously that is motivating what we see out on our streets. It's what made the COVID-19 crisis worse. It's what limits still economic opportunity. It's what has perpetuated a crisis of global warming. It's the environmental justice movement, the ability to dump pollution and chemical plants and site facilities in lower income neighborhoods where wealthier folks don't get burdened by the pollution or the air toxicity or dirty water. It's the inability of our structures to actually treat everybody equally and to say that everybody counts equally. And I think that inequity just runs through everything else. And so when we look at issues around the long-term impact of climate change, clearly that's a generational issue and a massive one. And if we don't solve that one, little else matters. But what permeates through that is an awful lot of ways in which lower income communities, particularly Black and brown communities, have been exploited economically. Healthcare disparities, right? You look at the rates of infection for communities like Chelsea that have a known infection rate that is still influenced then by lack of testing, known infection rate over 5 times the state average. And that's largely immigrant community, largely Hispanic community, largely low income community, largely higher incidence of multi-generational households, all the rest. An African-American woman is 3 to 4 times more likely to die during childbirth than a white woman, even when adjusted for income and education. So take the social disparities out. They're still 70% more likely when adjusted for social determinants of health, which just comes down to structural inequities and structural racism in our healthcare sector. And so we can say healthcare, we can say education, you can say climate change, you can say all of them, but the running thread through all of it is that unequal treatment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jocelyn, a senior at Tech Boston.
Hi, Congressman Kennedy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
My question is, what advice can you give to us high school seniors as we enter a new chapter in our lives?
The best advice I can give you is kind of what I said before, is don't let anybody tell you, no, don't let anybody tell you you're too young or you're too inexperienced or you're too naive or idealistic or it just doesn't work that way. Don't let anybody tell you that. Have the confidence to say, maybe it doesn't work that way, but maybe it should. Have the humility to learn, right? There's an awful lot in this world to learn, but don't be afraid to ask why. And don't be afraid to push somebody politely, but say, well, why? Why is it that way? And you'll either, as I said before, you'll either get a reason, which is a pretty good reason, or you'll get a reason that isn't. But either way, you'll be able to then address and know what you need to address in order to solve your problem. For anybody in an older generation, including my own, that tries to tell you, hey, just take your time with this, look outside. If the folks running the place were doing such a bang up job, why are we in the middle of this? It ain't like you can sit there and say anybody else could do any worse. I mean, so if anybody challenges, how much worse does it have to get before it's worth you giving you a shot? How much worse does it have to get before it's worth listening to you?
Thank you so much for that, Congressman. Next, we have Gregory, a senior at Boston Latin.
Hi, Congressman Kennedy.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing great.
So my question is, what would be some of your priorities if you became a U.S. Senator?
A number of them. So one, I've done a lot of work on healthcare, particularly mental health. And so that would be that has been a big one. Access to legal services, so making sure people get access to an attorney is a big one. Certainly these structural inequities on race. As I said, I don't think you can actively address or accurately address a number of the other challenges and lack of economic opportunity that we confront unless you address those. And so that's a big one, but that's a big part of the work that I have done and would want to do. And obviously climate, right? I got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. I want to make sure they got a planet to enjoy too. And at the rate we're going, that's going to get harder and harder. So that's a lot, and there's a lot on the plate, but I think this moment calls for, there's a lot of room for improvement, why don't I put it that way? And if you don't have folks that are willing to throw everything they got at it, then find somebody who is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Powerful, so powerful. Congressman, we thank you so much. The one question that we ask everyone that comes to our DotTalks series is, what's the first thing that you're looking to do when this pandemic is over that you haven't been able to do?
Oh, gosh. I'm looking forward to going to a barbecue with some friends. I'm looking forward to I think like everybody else, to go back to some semblance of a handshake and a hug and a greeting, and just not to have to be so worried about my family and my kids, and to be so worried about my country. I think we got a long way to go before I'm not going to be quite so worried about that.
Yes, thank you again for joining us tonight. Please know we appreciate everything that you do, helping vulnerable families, now more so than ever. Just coming together and showing dignity, openness, honesty, tolerance, and respect for all of our neighbors. Thank you for joining us and answering our questions. We hope you will come and visit the club when this
Would love to.
pandemic is over. And
Would love to.
Congressman, we'd love to have you. It's an open invitation. Just call and you're there. Red carpet, all 3 buildings.
We'll make it work. I already got a sweatshirt to prove it, so we'll make it happen. I look forward
I
to
just want to introduce Chad. Chad Hassey, who is the program director at the Walter Denny Youth Center, that's been the person to kind of handle all of this setup for us tonight. So I just wanted to introduce you to Chad also, Congressman.
it. Chad, thank you.
Is there any questions
Thank
that
you.
you have for us before? We know that you have to, run and just,
Yeah,
take
for-
care of the Commonwealth once again. But we appreciate all that you do, and we want you to stay safe while you're out there.
Thank you, guys. I'm really grateful for it. All right. Be well.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care, you guys.
Have a great one.